Imagine for a moment. You are leafing through the pages of an old book, a book you know well. The stories inside have comforted you, inspired you, and given you the hope you needed in moments of doubt. This book is the Bible, one of the most influential texts of humanity. But what if I told you that it holds secrets that few dare to mention? Yes, there are miracles that many have never heard of. Stories that were not recorded in the Gospels that you know, but that are, somehow, recorded in traditions, forgotten texts, and apocryphal accounts. These miracles, as powerful as they are mysterious, seem to almost whisper between the lines of our history. And today, we are going to unravel them together. Have you ever wondered why some stories simply disappeared? Why were some miracles relegated to silence, while others gained prominence in the Holy Scriptures? What could be the reason? What was left out, and why? Today, we are going to explore exactly that. We will travel along the forgotten paths of the Apocrypha and through ancient traditions that have survived the test of time. We will discover the miracles of Jesus that, despite not being in the Gospels, continue to generate emotion and mystery. Stories of divine power, incredible healings, and moments that, for some reason, have never reached us in the way we imagined. Get ready to dive into a world where faith defies the limits of history, where forgotten miracles reveal an even more impressive Jesus. Because, my friends, what we are about to discover will challenge everything we thought we knew. Welcome to the journey of untold miracles. Ready to continue? And here, we begin to tread the path of the unknown. You remember the miracles of Jesus that you know well, healings, the multiplication of loaves and fishes, the resurrection of Lazarus. These events are immortalized in the Gospels, but there is more. In ancient texts, those that have remained on the margins of history, other stories emerge, and one of them is linked to something that few people know. In one of these accounts, Jesus walks through a small village where drought had devastated the soil. The crops were dead, water was scarce. The despair in the people's eyes was palpable. They did not know that the man among them was not just a traveler. In this apocryphal text, instead of multiplying food or turning water into wine, as we know from the Gospels, Jesus does something different. He touches the dry ground, touches the arid land, and suddenly, flowers begin to bloom. Yes, flowers. Red, blue, purple, of all colors. Flowers that not only decorated the land, but restored life to the soil. The miracle was not to feed bodies at that moment, but to give hope. The flowers, the text says, gave off a perfume that filled the hearts of those there with renewed faith, a feeling that better days were coming. These details are omitted from the canonical accounts, but they persist in older traditions. These are not the kinds of miracles we often hear about, and it makes us wonder, why? Why has such a beautiful, powerful story been forgotten? But there is more. The texts that mention these miracles have an almost magical aura, a touch of mysticism that defies comprehension. They show a Jesus even more connected to nature, more sensitive to the emotional needs of his people. And behind all this emerges the idea that Jesus' miracles were not just to demonstrate power, but to nourish the spirit. Now, think with me. If stories like this are not in the Gospels, what else could be hidden? What other narratives could transform our view of divine power? And so, we move on, delving deeper into the untold mysteries. But that's just the beginning. These ancient texts tell another story that challenges what we know. In an apocryphal manuscript found on the shores of the Dead Sea, there is an intriguing account of a child, blind from birth, who lived on the outskirts of Nazareth. As Jesus passes through the small village, his parents approach him, who desperately beg him for a cure. But in this account, the miracle does not happen as we know it from Scripture. Jesus does not lay hands on the child immediately. There are no magic words or dramatic acts. Instead, he simply watches the child in silence. The wind around him picks up, the leaves on the trees begin to dance in the air, and then Jesus does something unexpected. He takes a handful of earth and mixes it with his own saliva, something that the canonical texts suggest in a similar miracle, but here, the difference is clear. Instead of applying the clay directly to the child's eyes, Jesus places the clay on the ground and murmurs words that no one there understands. And then, The stars. Yes, the stars in the sky begin to shine with a different intensity, and at that moment, the child looks up and sees the stars for the first time. Not only was his vision restored, but the child's first glance was toward the sky, toward the cosmos, as if the universe itself were involved in the act of healing. This detail, lost in the apocryphal texts, reveals a Jesus who not only heals, but connects humanity to something much greater, the divine, the infinite. He did not limit himself to restoring the body, but opened doors to the spiritual, to the vastness of the sky and its infinite possibilities. And now, you begin to realize, these forgotten miracles carry something deeper. They were not just acts of divine power, but invitations. Invitations to see the world and the cosmos itself in a completely new way. As if the purpose of each miracle was not only to heal, but to awaken something within us, something that time and history have not been able to erase. And so, we continue to walk along this mysterious path, in search of what we still have to discover. But here's where things take an unexpected turn. You're with me so far, but brace yourself, because what comes next may shake your perceptions. There's a little-known text that tells of an even more astonishing miracle. This is a story that challenges what many believe about the power of Jesus and what he really meant to the world around him. In the gospel accounts, we are accustomed to seeing Jesus as the compassionate teacher, the one who heals and restores. But in this particular apocryphal text, something different happens. The setting is a lake, where fishermen try, unsuccessfully, to catch fish. Nothing unusual so far, right? But then, Jesus does something that goes beyond what we would expect. He doesn't just help them catch fish. According to this account, Jesus doesn't just order the fish to come up into the nets. He speaks directly to the water. And this is where the miracle takes an unusual turn. The water responds. It moves, forms itself into gentle waves, and almost seems to whisper. Jesus is in direct dialogue with the elements of nature. And then he orders something no one there had ever seen. The water, following his command, begins to rise into the sky. A column of water, rising like a mirror to the sun. The fisherman, astonished, watches the fish begin to leap through this suspended wall of water, falling directly into their nets. This miracle, kept silent for centuries, suggests something greater. Jesus' power was not just over human beings or disease, but also over creation itself. It was as if he were revealing an intimate connection with the essence of the natural world, with forces beyond our comprehension. And here's the twist. This story suggests that Jesus' true power has not been fully understood. That he had control not only over life, but over the very fabric of the world. That his influence transcended human limits and touched the very laws that govern nature. Now think about it. If Jesus' power is so vast, why have these stories remained in the shadows? What could they possibly tell us about the true nature of the divine? About the laws of the universe that we do not yet understand? And more importantly, what does this tell us about what may still be around us, unseen, waiting to be revealed? But the mystery doesn't end there. Now, let's dive even deeper. In one of the lesser-known accounts, taken from an apocryphal manuscript, there is a miracle that defies not only expectations, but also the very notion of time and space. Yes, that's right. This time, we're not talking about healing or controlling nature. We are talking about something that transcends the present, about a divine intervention on a level so profound that it seems to play with the laws we know. The story takes place during a journey between Jesus and his disciples. They are exhausted, having traveled under the scorching sun, and find refuge in a humble house in the mountains. The owner of the house, a simple man, offers them shelter and food, but carries an immense sorrow in his heart. He had lost his son some years earlier in a tragic accident. Nothing could fill the void left by this loss. But then, something unusual happens. Jesus withdraws to pray, as he usually did, but this time the disciples feel that there is something different in the air. Time seems to stop. The sound of the wind ceases, the birds do not sing, and a strange stillness descends upon the earth. When Jesus returns, his eyes seem to reflect a wisdom older than the world itself. He calls the owner of the house and, without saying a word, leads them to a small hill nearby. There, Jesus touches the ground, exactly where the fatal accident occurred years before. And then, something inexplicable happens. Before all those present, the Son of Man reappears, not as a spirit, but as flesh and blood, alive, as if he had never left this world. It was not a resurrection in the conventional sense. It was as if time had been rewritten, as if that fateful moment had never happened. The Father, in tears, could hardly believe what he was seeing. This miracle is not recorded in the Gospels, but in texts that only a few scholars dare to explore. And here is the second revelation: Jesus' power was not limited to life and death as we know it, but transcends even time. He had, in this account, the power to alter reality itself. Now, think about that for a moment. If Jesus had the ability to touch time and reverse events in such an absolute way, what does that tell us about his divinity? About what it means to be beyond human limitations? And, most importantly, what does this suggest about the forces that shape our very existence, invisible forces that may be acting on us, even when we do not realize it? These hidden texts make us wonder how far divine power goes. What if these forgotten miracles hold secrets that can help us understand the mysteries we experience today? And so the mystery continues to unfold. The story of the man who saw his son restored, as if time had folded before his eyes, is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Because, you see, when Jesus touches the timeline, he is not just healing a life. He is revealing something profound, that the very flow of history can be shaped by forces we do not know. But this brings us to an even more frightening question, and here we come to the next revelation. There is another story, hidden in the ancient texts, that speaks of something even more disturbing. A miracle that Jesus performed, not about time, but about the very essence of evil. This story takes place in a small, forgotten village, where a series of tragedies had struck the community. People began to believe that an invisible force, a kind of curse, was hanging over the place. Despair had spread, and darkness seemed to grow, consuming hope. When Jesus arrived, he performed no physical healings. There were no miracles of multiplying food. He did something that few understood at the time. As he walked through the streets of the village, Jesus stopped at a specific spot, a place where people said the curse was strongest. He knelt down, placed his hands on the ground, and then a silence took over the atmosphere. What happened next was something that not even his disciples could explain. The earth began to shake, and a shadow that seemed to rise from the depths was brought to the surface. It was as if Jesus were pulling out the evil by the roots, personifying it, bringing it out of hiding. That shadow, that which had corrupted people for generations, was confronted directly. But here is the crux. Evil was not just an invisible force, something abstract. No. It had an identity, an almost conscious form. It was as if Jesus was revealing, before everyone, that evil in the world is not a distant concept, but something that intertwines with our lives in ways that are much more direct and personal than we could ever imagine. And there, in that village, in front of everyone, Jesus freed the place from that shadow. But the most intriguing thing is that the apocryphal text suggests that, in doing so, Jesus revealed something that is not clear in the Gospels. Evil, although defeated, is still alive, lurking, waiting for new opportunities. Victory was not the end, but a constant battle. This story makes us wonder, what else lies beneath the unseen layers of our reality? What if evil, as it is presented to us, comes in forms that we do not yet fully comprehend? What did Jesus know about the spiritual world that we are still struggling to understand? He was not just healing bodies. He was, at this moment, fighting cosmic battles that surpassed human comprehension. And what does this revelation mean for the world we live in now? But the revelations continue. The shadow that Jesus confronted in that village was only the beginning. In the apocryphal texts, there is a new layer of mystery that few dare to unravel, and it is here that the true purpose of his coming to earth begins to reveal itself. According to these accounts, there was a plan, an invisible purpose, that unfolded behind every miracle that Jesus performed. A third revelation takes us beyond the battles against visible evil. It speaks of a greater conflict, an ongoing spiritual battle, a war being waged not in the distant future but right now, right around us. In this apocryphal account, Jesus was not just delivering people from physical or spiritual evil, he was preparing the way for a final war between the unseen forces that shape the destiny of humanity. And here comes the third revelation: the true plan of Lucifer, the adversary, was not completely destroyed with his fall. What this text suggests is profound. Even after his fall, Lucifer continued to work in the shadows, influencing events, manipulating hearts and minds. The struggle between light and darkness did not end with the arrival of Jesus, but rather intensified. Jesus knew this, and in his apocryphal miracles, he was not just healing or teaching, but preparing the faithful for this invisible battle that would continue for centuries. But what does this mean for us? Here's where the revelation touches on your personal life. This war is not just in ancient texts. It is happening now. These invisible forces, these influences that Jesus confronted in the villages, in the lives of the people, are still present, shaping the world around us. And it's not just about big historical events, it's about the daily decisions, the silent temptations, the battles we fight within ourselves. These forces, even when invisible, are closer than we imagine. What Jesus did, in stories like that of the shadow plucked from the earth, was to warn us, there is more at stake than meets the eye. He left us an example, showing that with faith and understanding, we too can win these battles. But here's the question: how many of these forces are still at work, without us realizing it? And how can these ancient revelations help us resist these influences today? What was Jesus trying to tell us through these forgotten miracles about how to live in a world where good and evil are in constant conflict? This is the third revelation, and it is not just historical. It is a living truth that touches us all. And now we come to a crucial point. If these invisible forces, these spiritual battles, are happening all around us, you may be wondering, what about us? How do we face these forces? The truth is that these stories are not just stored in ancient texts. They are still manifesting themselves today, in the lives of ordinary people who, in moments of despair, discover that spiritual battles are real. Let me tell you the story of a woman whose testimony has come down to us through ancient Christian traditions. Her name was Miriam, and she lived in an isolated village surrounded by mountains. To many, her life seemed normal. She worked the land, took care of her family, and followed the faith that had been passed down from generation to generation. But few knew that Miriam was living a silent spiritual battle. It all started with nightmares. At first, they were confusing visions of a shadow that seemed to be watching her, moving between the corners of the house. Over time, the dreams intensified, becoming more vivid, more terrifying. Miriam began to realize that the evil she felt in her dreams was not just in her mind. It was all around her. Her health began to deteriorate. The doctors could not find an explanation. It was as if something invisible was sucking her vitality, making each day a struggle. Desperate, she sought help and faith. One night, while she prayed with all her remaining strength, something extraordinary happened. The feeling of darkness that surrounded her began to dissipate, as if a gentle breeze were driving away the darkness. At that moment, she saw light, a presence that she could not explain. It was not just a vision, it was a profound sense of peace, as if someone were standing beside her. Days later, she shared her experience with the village elder. And he, with the accumulated wisdom of generations, said to her, "You have faced a spiritual battle, Miriam. What Jesus did centuries ago, you now do through your faith." He gave us the example, but he also gave us the power to endure. This story is one of many. Miracles are not just grand acts that happen in the past. They happen in small moments, in ordinary lives, when we least expect them. People like Miriam face battles every day, but what they may not realize is that this fight is not fought alone. The forces that Jesus faced in the ancient villages, the shadows that he uprooted from the land, are still present. But just as he overcame, he has given us the tools to overcome them too. And now, the invitation extends to you. What are the unseen battles you are facing? What shadows do you sense looming in your life? These ancient stories, these forgotten miracles, are not just tales to astonish us, they are reminders that in the midst of darkness, there is always a light waiting to guide us. The battle continues, But victory, for those who have faith, has always been within reach. And so we come to the moment of greatest tension. These unseen battles that Miriam and so many others have faced throughout history bring us to an inescapable conclusion. We are all on a journey, and the climax of this story is not far away, nor reserved for some uncertain future. It is happening now, all around us, and within us. What we are about to discover goes beyond the apocryphal stories, beyond the forgotten miracles. Because the real battle, the one Jesus was preparing us for all along, was not just against disease, hunger, or natural forces. It was against the evil that silently takes root in the world, in the minds and hearts of people. The great revelation is this: the spiritual battle that Jesus fought did not end with his crucifixion and resurrection. It continues, and we are part of it. Every time we face temptation, doubt, or darkness that tries to pull us away from the light, we are participating in this invisible war. The apocryphal miracles, with their intriguing stories, show us that Jesus did not just heal bodies, he prepared souls. He knew that the greatest victory would not be just physical, it would be spiritual. Imagine, then, that everything you have faced so far, the moments of inner struggle, the temptations that have arisen in silence, the challenges that seemed beyond your comprehension, are all part of this narrative. You are at the climax of history, where the unseen forces of good and evil clash. Jesus has given us clues, not only in the Gospels but also in these unrecorded miracles, about how to fight this battle. And here is the climax: the real battle is not in the distant future, but in the present. It is happening right now, all around you. With every choice we make, with every small act of kindness or wickedness, we are shaping the outcome of this spiritual war. So what can we do? The answer lies in the actions that Jesus demonstrated and that are echoed in these apocryphal miracles. He showed us that love, compassion, faith, and resilience are the weapons we have against the unseen forces that seek to bring us down. When Jesus touched the water and it responded, when he lifted the shadow from the earth, he was showing us that evil can be confronted and overcome. And this power, this strength, was not reserved for him alone. He shared it with us. So now, as you reflect on these stories, on the miracles that have remained in the shadows of history, the question that remains is, how will you fight this battle? What will you do in the face of the shadows that appear in your life? Because, my friend, the climax of this story does not belong only to the past. It is happening now, within you. And so, we are invited to step into the scene, to do our part in this narrative of light and shadow. Because the real battle is here, and victory has already been planned for those who dare to resist. And here we are, at the end of this journey. Now that the curtain has been pulled back and the revelations about Jesus' hidden miracles have been unveiled, we have reached the final point, and also the most important one. What does all this mean to you? How can these ancient stories, forgotten by so many, shape the way we live and face our challenges today? Jesus did not simply perform miracles to heal or impress. His every act, recorded or not, carried a deeper message. And that message is this: the spiritual battle that began long before we were born still rages on, and we all have a role to play. What we have learned throughout this journey through the apocryphal texts is that the struggle between good and evil is not something distant, reserved only for biblical stories. It is here, in the choices we make every day. The unseen forces that Jesus faced, whether healing a body, restoring a soul, or even manipulating time itself, are the same ones we face in our thoughts, in the temptations, and in the trials that cross our path. So what is the next step? What can you do now that you know these forces are all around you, unseen but powerful? The answer lies in the words and actions of Jesus. He taught us how to resist, with unwavering faith, with compassion and love for others, with the courage to face the shadows, both within and without. He gave us the example that spiritual victory is not just about grand gestures, but about small acts of kindness, forgiveness, and resilience in the face of evil. And here is the call to action. How can you protect yourself from these invisible forces? First, strengthen your faith. Just as Jesus' miracles were not just physical healings but spiritual transformations, your faith is the key to transforming your life. Prayer, meditation, and seeking a higher purpose are the shields Jesus offered us. Second, Do good in the little things. Often, invisible battles are won with simple acts of kindness, with a word of encouragement, with an act of compassion. Every time you choose the light, choose to forgive, choose to love, you are participating in spiritual victory. And finally, resist. The shadows that Jesus faced still haunt this world, but just as he defeated them, so can you. No matter how small or large the battles that arise in your life, remember that victory is promised to those who endure with faith and perseverance. These apocryphal miracles, these forgotten stories, are more than just records of the past. They are reminders that the power of Jesus still lives within us, ready to be used in the daily battle for the light. Now, the choice is yours. You have seen the shadows, but you have also seen the light. You know the battle is real, but you also know that victory is possible. The question is, how will you choose to fight? The journey does not end here, but only begins. Because, as Jesus taught, the real battle is happening now, within each of us. And victory, my friend, is already within your reach. If this journey into the mysteries of Jesus' miracles touched you in any way, don't forget to leave your like so that more people can learn about these hidden stories and powerful revelations. And of course, subscribe to the channel to continue exploring ancient mysteries, forgotten texts, and much more about faith, history, and the spiritual battles that we still face today. Join us and don't miss any chapter of this fascinating journey.